Whenever starting something new, you should already know that making a mistake, or many mistakes for that matter, is going to be inevitable. Working out in the gym is no different, and many of the mistakes that beginners make are often no big deal, with the worst case scenario being that they end up featured in a viral gym fails video. Realistically, however, most mistakes people make in the gym won't be as obvious as performing an exercise entirely wrong, but rather these are very subtle mistakes that aren't really noticeable unless you were to analyze someone's entire training routine. The problem here, though, is that these are mistakes that directly affect the effectiveness of your workouts and may very likely be the cause of why you aren't seeing your desired results. Since these are subtle mistakes, many lifters will go on to continue making these mistakes even years into their training. To make sure this isn't you, pay close attention to the following 5 worst workout mistakes that you have to avoid making. Mistake number 1 is doing too much. Easily the worst mistake you can make in the gym is not knowing how much you should be doing. Volume, which is the number of sets you do each week for a particular muscle group, is one of the most important factors when it comes to muscle growth. Unfortunately though, most people are doing way too much weekly volume while thinking that it's necessary in order to achieve their desired results. In reality, most people could see results with just 5 or 6 sets per muscle group per week, assuming these sets were challenging enough. To get the most optimal results though, you should probably be doing anywhere between 10 to 20 sets per week for each muscle group, an arguably very modest range. I mean, think about it. If you wanted to do 12 sets of chest each week, you'd only have to be doing 3 or 4 total chest exercises throughout the course of an entire week. Although some people's bodies may respond well to doing more than 20 sets per week, most people won't, and this very likely will just result in them overtraining. So trust me, you probably don't need to be doing near as much as you think you do. The second mistake on this list is simply focusing on the wrong things in your training. When most people think of results, they think of intense training that leaves them exhausted walking out of the gym door. In reality, this really couldn't be any further from the truth. The idea that pain is correlated with gain, or that fatigue is correlated with an effective workout, is simply misleading. For example, doing 20 reps of bicep curls and then pumping out an extra 5 while your arms feel like they're gonna melt from the burn you're feeling is probably not having the effect you think it does. That burn you feel, which is known as metabolic stress, is simply the result of your muscle pH lowering and becoming more acidic, which is one of the key signs of muscle fatigue. The problem is, modern research actually shows that this metabolic stress likely has little to no effect on your overall muscle growth, and is therefore just more of a negative byproduct of muscle fatigue. Instead, the current literature shows that the only variable that probably actually is responsible for muscle growth is mechanical tension, or the level of tension stimulus that is placed on your muscles while training. In other words, you could have done a set of bicep curls or just 10 reps to failure and achieve the same exact muscle growth results as your 25 rep set, except with much less pain and fatigue. Similarly, soreness and fatigue aren't really correlated with muscle growth, or even results for that matter either. Soreness is generally a sign of excessive muscle damage that your body is unable to repair, and contrary to what you probably learned in the past, muscle damage actually isn't what contributes to most of your muscle growth. Rather, this soreness, much like the metabolic stress burn, is actually just a negative side effect of training. The more muscle damage and soreness you have, the longer it'll take for you to recover, and thus the longer you'll have to wait to be able to train that muscle again. This same rule applies to overall fatigue, as you could do a whole lot of nothing in terms of stimulating muscle growth for an hour in the gym, yet leave feeling extremely exhausted simply because you are being physically active. Just like with soreness, excessive fatigue isn't directly related to the effectiveness of your training, and instead just hinders your body's ability to recover. Put differently, this basically basically means that you shouldn't be purposefully trying to get sore or exhausted from your training. However, both of these things can still be indicative of high quality training effort, so you shouldn't necessarily be purposefully trying to avoid them either. All right, that leads me to mistake number 3. The third worst mistake you can make in the gym is simply training with too low of an intensity. To clarify, in weight training context, the term intensity can refer to the perceived effort level of your training, as well as the amount of weight you're using on an exercise in relation to your 1 rep max. As someone who has trained and coached hundreds of people throughout my life, one issue I always find with most new lifters is that they completely underestimate their abilities, especially their strength and knowing when you're actually at muscular failure. This results in many of them choosing weights and doing a number of reps that they perceive to be challenging, but this challenge might actually just be in their heads. For beginners, this isn't a huge deal, as any bit of stimulus will help them to see results. However, if they never learn how to truly push themselves, their results will always be underwhelming. Consistently trying to push yourself by increasing the weight you use on an exercise or trying to pump out 1 or 2 extra reps in a set will help you to gain a true perspective on your body's capabilities. This is incredibly important to your progress in the gym, as only the sets that are truly challenging and bring your muscles to or close to genuine failure will be able to drive the significant results you're looking for. Now, mistake number 4. Mistake number 4 is that your training doesn't align with your fitness goals. For people looking to maximize their performance in the gym and hit distinct goals, this mistake can be absolutely devastating to your success. Many lifters think that simply training hard is going to get them their results. Sure, it may get you some results, but it won't necessarily get you the type of results you're looking for. This is because the adaptations your body makes to weight training are based on the number of reps you do each set. Now, you may already be familiar with this chart, or at least one similar to it, which is often called the rep range continuum. As it shows, each training adaptation, which includes strength, power, hypertrophy, and muscle endurance, is on a spectrum with a specific rep range providing the best results. Generally, this is 1 to 6 reps for strength, 1 to 5 reps for power, 6 to 12 reps for hypertrophy or muscle growth, and 12 or more reps for endurance. If you wanted to get as strong as possible, the vast majority of your working sets should be done in the 1 to 6 rep range, meaning you'd have to be using heavy loads quite often. However, since this is a spectrum, you could essentially see strength and muscle growth results by training in between 2 rep ranges, such as doing 5 to 8 reps per set. But if you're expecting to get stronger by doing sets of 15 reps, you're going to be extremely disappointed. This same exact spectrum applies to how long you rest in between sets, except this time it's reversed. Your strength and power results will be best if you rest at least 3 minutes between sets, while your muscle growth results will be best if you rest at least 1.5 minutes between sets. And endurance results will be best if you rest less than 60 seconds between sets. Even if you were training with perfect form and exerting maximal effort in each and every workout, your results will always be suboptimal if you're not training in a way that is relevant to your fitness goals. Now for mistake number 5. The 5th and final mistake on this list is concerned with poor exercise selection. Clearly, everyone already knows that in order to grow a muscle, you have to do an exercise that targets that muscle. The problem is, not every exercise is made equal. For example, the triceps rope pushdown and the dumbbell triceps kickback are 2 exercises that train the triceps in almost identical ways. However, the rope pushdown will always be vastly superior to the kickback, as the tension on the triceps will be much more constant and the position will allow for more stability and comfortability. It's very possible that you could get far more muscle growth stimulus from doing just 2 hard sets of row pushdowns than you could from doing 5 sets of the dumbbell kickbacks. Likewise, not everyone realizes which muscles and exercise actually works. People think a lat pull down is always going to be a lat pull down, but in reality, minor variations will greatly emphasize different muscles. As an example, the seated lat pull down will mostly train the teres major muscle, while the kneeling lat pull down will be substantially better at working your lats. Another important part of the exercise selection is variety. If your leg workouts only consist of squats and hamstring curls, you're missing out on a lot of potential growth. No matter how many different types of squats you did, your quads are never going to be sufficiently challenged at a short muscle length like they are during leg extensions. Similarly, even if you performed 3 different types of hamstring curls, your hamstrings are only being trained at short muscle lengths. You'd have to include a hip extension movement, such as an RDL, if you wanted to train them at a long muscle length and maximize their growth. This is why you need sufficient variety in your training routine. After all, there's a reason why every triceps exercise is done with your shoulders and elbows in different positions. It's because it trains them differently. Therefore, you should always make an effort to choose a variety of high quality exercises that specifically target each muscle you're trying to train. If you're guilty of making any of the 5 mistakes I mentioned in this video, just know that you're not alone. These are all mistakes that most people simply never notice unless someone teaches them otherwise. And most of these mistakes by themselves won't necessarily prevent you from making strides towards your goals in the gym. However, they will make your training far less effective and efficient. For example, if you tend to train with too low of intensity, there's a good chance that you also do an excessive amount of volume because your low intensity sets are not very fatiguing. This results in you still getting some results, but also having to do a ton more volume and spending much more time in the gym to achieve those results. If you want help with your workouts or your nutrition, or you just want somebody to take control of your fitness goals, and check out some of the links in the description box below, and you'll find links to all the programs I offer for both men and women. With that said, thanks for watching my video, and as always, get busy, get after it, and God bless.